Good morning, good day, good afternoon, and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to make some discoveries. And the first discovery is right in front of you. That's me. I am a teacher of dance, but a teacher with so many names given to me by my children, my students, and every person I meet. Today I choose to use Madame J, and J stands for Judith. Madame J is a friend, a mother of so many children, both biological and non-biological. My biological children, we won't tell you the numbers, but the non-biological include the social, the academic, the religious, and no, I don't have political children. But I know by the end of today, some of you will have joined me as my children. You're very welcome to join my family. Anyway, Madame Judith has taught dance, and this is traditional dance from Uganda. As a researcher and a dance teacher for about 15 years now. Let's go to our second discovery. Do you know that we're actually together today? Some of you may be asking now, how come? Yeah, we are together. And we are all on planet Earth. You're welcome. Should I welcome you anyway? I think we're all there, so I don't need to welcome you. However, let's make a mental tour to search for our treasure. It will lead us to the continent of Africa. Very welcome to Africa. Thank you for joining us. This is a continent of about 54 countries, made mainly of the black people. Of course, there are people who are of a different color, but we're mostly the black people. I won't stay long there because we need to travel more. Join me as we go, because we have to find a treasure somewhere and we have to reach it. Let's continue and go to one of those regions. And I didn't tell you this, but the continent has 5 regions. That is the North Africa, South Africa, West Africa, Central Africa. So this time I am leading you to East Africa. Welcome. East Africa is made up of the East African community, which has about 5 countries or 6 countries joined later by South Sudan. So we have Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Our treasure is found in one of those countries, and this is Uganda. Welcome to Uganda. Uganda has 4 regions, and those are northern region, eastern region, southwestern region, and the central region. You may be asking why I'm not talking about the southern region. That comes because our country is endowed by one of those fresh water lakes, Lake Nalubale. I know some of you believe it's Lake Victoria, but remember, it had a name before someone thought it was a better name for it. So, in Uganda, we know it's called Lake Narubale. For the international community, it's Lake Victoria. Uganda's capital city is Kampala, and it is in the central region of the country. In that region, the central region, the people are called Baganda. Tusanyiso balaba, banyabo, ne basebo. However, we still have to find our treasure, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue the journey. From Kampala, you'll have to travel into the southwest of the country. In the western region, that is where you will find our treasure, and that is in Ankole sub-region of western Uganda. Welcome. Twabashemererwa, twabakira. I would have given you a hug, but the times don't allow that. Our culture believes in connecting with people. However, for now, I'll stop at twabakira. Thank you very much. Now, Ankole is where the treasure we are looking for is found. However, before we get onto the treasure, we need to know about the people who are in that region. Ankole is a sub-region originally known as Karo Karungi. Karo Karungi means a beautiful place. It is covered by undulating hills. And those hills are full of banana plantations. On the other side, you will find the cattle, the long-horned cattle. That is one of the most beautiful sights ever. Let's look again at these people. They speak a language called Runyankore. They are called Banyankore. Remember, the region was called Ankole. I guess you can get the difference and you can get where all this comes from. Banyankore means the people of Ankole. And the language Runyankore means the language spoken by the Banyankore. Welcome, dear. Twabakira, twabashemererwa, murire muta. Like we said, Ankole is the Karo Karungi. It's formerly known as the land of milk and honey. It is composed of 10 districts, and currently we have Mbarara as the most prominent district. And that district today is a city. It got that status very recently. Let's look at the people again. We say they are Banyankore, speaking Runyankore. We say they are from Ankole. Now, these Ankole people stem from a larger ethnic group called the Bantu. Bantu, an ethnic group that is composed of people from Eastern Uganda, Western Uganda, and Central Uganda. Their language is composed or is characterized by the word ntu, or the suffix ntu, for the word to mean person. So in Buganda, you'll hear someone say omuntu. In Ankole, they'll say omuntu. In Busoga, in the eastern region, you'll hear omuntu. When we talk about things, then we say ebintu. When we talk about small things, obuntu, akantu. Those are some of the things that unite those languages. And that's what we call the ethnic group Bantu. So let's go back to our Banyankore people. Politically, they were organized centrally under a king. And that king was known as Omugabe. So Omugabe was a supreme leader, and that meant that he had all authority. His decisions were final. And because of that, it did not go very well with his subjects. To the end, it led to the abolition of a kingdom. Not only that, but with other aspects of the country that went around. Today, we see that after the abolition of a kingdom, the Ankole people, or the Banyankore, are directly under the central government system. That is unlike the other regions of, for instance, Buganda, Busoga. Actually, all those ones have kings, but Ankole does not have a king anymore. Economically, Karokarunji was a very plentiful place, a land of plenty. They had two classes of people who dealt in different activities. The Bairu and the Bahima. The Bahima were the pastoralists, while the Bairu were the agriculturalists, meaning that they were the peasant farmers. I'm saying today, currently, and we're saying today because initially they had three social classes, and that included the Bakama, who produced the Omugabe. So because that class is no more, then we have just the two classes of the Bahima, pastoralist, and the Bairu, who are the agriculturalists. So their main occupation was rearing of cattle and growing crops. The Bairu also had potters among them, blacksmiths, and these were some of the activities they engaged in. So as we continue, these classes, the Bairu class and the Bahima class, did not exactly work together until they realized they needed each other in terms of the products they each produced. Why? The Bahima felt they were more superior than the Bairu. That is something that has not died to death. The Bahima still underlook the Bairu. It's common to see a Mwiru failing to connect with a Bahima because of a historical background. This has happened and is still happening to date. It's something that with time could fade. However, it's still there with those who are used to this kind of situation. They've grown into it and they know they are superior, and the others are supposed to be less superior. The Bahima love their cattle so much. They can defend their cattle with their life if that's what it takes. They loved the cattle so much that they didn't even want any of them to die. That meant that the only product that they got from it, they were just the milk products. And that was their food throughout. That was their food throughout. Possibly they also get ghee out of it. That's like a butter. And with time, when of course the cow would die, then they would use the skin for clothing. Today we see a lot of differences because we now have the textile industries. We have fabric. We don't have to put on the skin. Because of the fact that we couldn't, the Bairu and the Bahima could not live the way they are. Each of them needed the other's products. They happened now to get into trade. So economically, the Bairu and the Bahima then began exchanging products. The Bairu bringing in the pottery, the food, the agricultural food, and all the other products. Then the Bahima providing cattle, of course with a lot of pain, because cattle was their niche. It is something that they loved and valued so much that however, the more cows you had or cattle you had, the more you was valued in the society, that more your status rose, right? So with time, we said they kind of had to exchange because they could not live with just their products. To this end, we realized that the Bairu and the Bahima now both have the both products. They have, the Bairu and the Bahima both have cattle. But because cattle is very much valued, it's used as bride wealth, it is used as a source of income, it's used as something that would lead your status up there. So they loved it so much that whatever they did zeroed around the cattle. This will lead us to what we were looking at. We want to look at, and that is the treasure we said we're looking at. The treasure here is Ekitaguriro. Ekitaguriro dance. Welcome to Ekitaguriro dance. Ekitaguriro is a dance of the Banyankore people. We said they come from Ankole region in western Uganda. And these people, like I said, thought and loved their cattle so much to a point that they created a dance imitating the long-horned cattle. Okay, we have dealt much on that area, on that section of finding out where we are, because it has answers to what we want to discover. Answers to our treasure, and the treasure we said was Ekitaguriro. So, as a researcher, we usually look at what we call the 5 W's and H. These are the what, the who, why, where, when, and how. What does that mean? What are we looking at? We said we are looking at Ekitaguriro dance. Who does this Ekitaguriro? These are the Ankole people we talked about before. So you know about them already. Now, let's find out why. Or before we go there, when we talk about the who, we talk about the people. But these people are part and parcel of, or they are kind of guided or separated into sections of gender, age, and so many other things. So, when we talk about who does the Ekitaguriro, apart from knowing that they are Banyankore, we should also know that they have women and men. We should know that they have children. That means the age differences. Ekitaguriro is performed by both men and women. That is today. However, the dance started with just the men. Why the men? Our why comes in. This dance, like we said, was imitating the cattle. And it was imitating the way the cattle moved from homesteads to where they were taken for grazing. That meant, of course, there was sound they produced. Of course, the beauty of the horns was looked at. But remember, it was only the men who did the herding. Socially, the women were supposed to do the cooking, childbear, clean the home, and all that. That was their duty as mothers. However, the men are the ones who did harder jobs of grazing the cattle. That meant that when the men came down at home, they had stories to tell. And that brings us to the why Ekitaguriro was performed. On returning, the men told stories to their fellow men. They gathered around pots of beer. I know when I say pots, some people never understand. They think about the USB pots. Okay, you call it a pot. The pot, it is kind of this shape actually. It has this shape, all right? And here is where the beer was put. Don't look at it as a plastic thing. It was a clay pot, okay? So the beer was poured in here, and the only duty the women had to do was to bring in more water to fill the pot. The men used straws, long straws. We are not talking about plastic straws here. We are talking about straws made of plant fiber. So these are like tree branches that have little holes within. So the pith was taken out and the straw or the stick was used as a straw. These were long, which meant that a man would stay at a distance and sit around, and as many as 10 people could drink from the same pot. Okay, stories are told, but let's first go back to the where. When we talk about where, we are looking at the geographical region, and that we say it is Ankole. We are also looking at the place where the dance is performed, and that is now a location in the homestead. With time, we shall see other places where the dance is done, and that is including the occasions on which it is performed. When we look at the occasions, then we are looking at the when. We are answering the next W, and that is the when. When is a dance performed? We see that because these ones are telling stories and they're happy people, it's not a sorrowful situation. That means that we are going to to perform the dance in a place that is where there's joy, social gathering. That will include weddings. It would include parties, anything where there is joy. So we go backwards a bit and go to the why. Now, why this actual dance came about? We said imitation of the cattle. But because we want to know deeper, this will also bring us to the structure of the dance as it is performed. So the dance, or the men happen to sit around the pot. Okay, the women mainly dealt in churning of the milk. They had gourds. Of course, this is a calabash, but the gourd is bigger, a bigger size of this, okay? So they would get the gourd, pour the milk, and begin shaking it. And in shaking this, that meant that the milk is turning, and at the end of the day, we'll get what we call ghee or amajuta. Amajuta is like butter. It's put in food. The brides used to smear themselves with it. And it's one of the delicacies of the Ankole. So most of the time, the ladies would make ghee out of the milk. Now, the only bit of work they did after that then was to look after their gentlemen men. They were all seated and the ladies had to bring brew in a pot. So, this is a pot, okay? So, beer was placed right into the pot, and additionally, water kept on being brought in. The ladies were not expected to drink and get drunk. So they would be given a little chance to just sip of possibly the husband's on the husband's straw. Now, as this continued, the men began talking about what they experienced in the field. That meant, for instance, as I was out there herding my cattle, I found a squirrel digging the ground. I found a beautiful lady. I found a lion and I fought it. They were talking about what they kind of met. So they would exchange that, men talking about their experiences. Interestingly, what some of these talks entailed was some of those words that they didn't want their wives to understand. For instance, I saw a dove from Rwanda. That meant I saw a beautiful woman out there. So if you said I met a beautiful woman and your wife heard that, I think that was hell on earth. Okay, so they had to use some of those metaphors in order to bring out their story. Then, as they kept on drinking, they, of course, got a bit tipsy. I mean, it is normal that when you get happy, you want to show your happiness. And this is how our dance, Ekitaguriro, came to be. Men got up and started stamping their feet just like the cows stamp their feet as they go trotting down the valleys and walking up the hills. So our dance mainly gets its movement from the stamping of the cow's hooves and also the long horns, okay? So the movements are mainly around those two areas.